Our next guest is Jody London, and Jody is in this business, the business of making the planet a better place. So, Jody, hi. Tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do.
So, hi, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast. My name is Jody London, and I am the Sustainability Coordinator for Contra Costa County, which means that I lead all of the work in Contra Costa County on climate action and figuring out how we can make the county a better place for everyone to live and work.
I'm assuming, by the way, that you being in Contra Costa County, a county I know, you are familiar with, on the one hand, people who are dialed into the environment and sustainability. And then there's the people who are like, nah, what's this about? It sounds like nonsense to me. I mean, how do you pitch your discussions with the varying levels of people in the county?
Well, I think that Contra Costa County gets a bad rap. It's funny because I was just talking about this a short while ago with some of my colleagues. You know, it is a legacy of history that Contra Costa County is home to 7 of the 10 largest industrial pollution sources in the Bay Area. 4 refineries, power plants, chemical plants, those were all put into place, you know, decades and decades ago before we had things like land use designation, zoning, general plans, and thought about how do we protect the health of the people who live near these facilities, right? And so I think a lot of people say, oh, they just have all those refineries there. They don't really care about the environment. And that could not be further from the truth. And when I was interviewing for my job in 2016, I remember saying to the person who's now my boss, there are a lot of people in this county who care deeply about climate action and sustainability, and they haven't had a place to bring those concerns forward. And because we have really great leadership on our Board of Supervisors in Contra Costa County, and then I'm at the staff level really able to push this work, we have made tremendous progress in the last several years on these issues. And it's very exciting work. When I started in 2016, it was just me. As of the beginning of the month, my staff, there's 5 of us now working on these issues in Contra Costa. And we're looking at everything from sea level rise to how do we transition the economy in Contra Costa County away from fossil fuels. 2 of the 4 refineries in the last couple of years have been authorized to process renewable fuel as opposed to crude oil. We're looking at particularly the transportation sector, because when you put aside those large industrial sources that we don't regulate, those are regulated by the state and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, transportation is by far the largest emission source, like it is everywhere else in California, almost everywhere else, followed closely by buildings. So one of the things we're working on right now, last year our county adopted a requirement that all new construction in the county be all electric. So you can't come in, and for most types of buildings now, you can't put in natural gas. You have to be all electric. But now we're looking at, okay, but how do we upgrade all the existing buildings that we have, particularly housing, because there's a huge indoor air quality benefit. And how do we do that in a way that doesn't displace people? Because once a property is converted, it becomes more valuable, right? It's a green building now. So those are some of the types of issues that I think about.
And so you were getting to the topic of environmental justice there. I mean, diversity, equity, inclusion, the justice that we need to help the communities that are affected most and often worst. That is part of your day-to-day?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we have maps. You can look on the Cal EnviroScreen map, which is the map that the state of California publishes that shows the communities that are the most disproportionately impacted by environmental pollution. And then if you were to map the refineries and other large industrial facilities, boy, they're right aligned. And I had an experience that I think is unusual. For 12 years, I was on the Oakland School Board. I live in Oakland and I work for Contra Costa County. And during my time on the school board, I was unusual in being a school board member. Most school board members have come from the education world, and I came from the world of energy efficiency and climate action and sustainability. And so I came in and I said, wow, I want to look at our students in Oakland, and I want to look at the map that the state uses to determine the Calendar map. And when you map in the local control funding formula and the status of students and whether they qualify for free and reduced lunch, basically, it's the same map, right? Like I did a presentation when I was on the school board that showed the redlining map of Oakland from the 1920s, followed by maybe the coronavirus screen map, the map of mortality rates, right? And then because it was at the beginning of COVID, the COVID death rates. It's the same map. You just change out the factors. And this is very, very sad. And that is, for me, it's one of the things that motivates my work every day is how do I change the map? How do we help people have different outcomes that are, not based on flukes of where you were born and old land use stuff or lack thereof. I just came from a meeting. We're working on an update to our general plan. That body, as well as an update to our climate action plan. That's a body of work called Envision Contra Costa 2040. You can find that website very easily. And we were talking about these policies that we want to put in place. And just before I came here, we were talking about, well, what if we have the great fortune that through these policies, the community is no longer considered disadvantaged or impacted? We call those communities impacted. What do we do to make sure that it doesn't go back into that status, right? Yesterday, I was working with folks on some grants that we want to go after. I mentioned we're in the process of putting together this all-electric roadmap. We're thinking about sea level rise. Contra Costa is also interesting because it's where the delta in the east meets the bay, right? So you have saltwater, freshwater coming together in the Carquinez Straits. So, and then all of these impacted communities that we're talking about are right there along the water. So how do you make sure that the people who have the least aren't then the most impacted by what's happening with the climate? A lot of what I do is just, convince people that this is the way to go. And luckily, as I mentioned earlier, our board of supervisors is very on board with this, and they want to make sure that Contra Costa County is a leader and is moving forward on these issues.
I gotta ask you, what's on tap for EVs and transportation in general?
We're pushing hard on electric vehicles. Our county has 10,000 employees, right? Because we have this big healthcare system, 4,500 people work for it, and then there's the rest of the county, and a lot of fleet vehicles. The department that I work in includes our building department. So all of the people who go out and inspect projects and have to enforce the code and things like that, they're driving fleet vehicles. So we've got clear direction from our board to convert the county fleet, and we have policies in place that say when you're replacing a vehicle, it has to be a zero emission vehicle. But we have to make sure we have the charging infrastructure in place. So we're very focused on that. Our board has actually agreed to invest $2.5 million a year from a sales tax that was passed in 2020 towards investments in county facilities every year. And the first tranche is going towards EV chargers. We have a great energy manager in our public works department, and he's very focused on making sure that we educate our employees, because we don't want to suddenly have all these electric vehicles in the fleet and have people say, I don't know how to drive this, or I'm going to run out of charge. So you have to be tending to a lot of different things at the same time as you do that.
Yes, you do. My hat's off to you trying to keep track of all of that from where you sit. What are the things you're looking forward to over the next 3 years that you think are really going to be big?
We're working hard to change the culture. I think we're going to be bringing in some grant money that'll let us do some big things. I think when we adopt our new general plan, which is going to include very specific policies around environmental justice, and sustainability, that's going to be very groundbreaking work. And also the work that we're just about to receive a grant from the federal government really launch our work on just transition and how we move the economy. I think this work is going to be very exciting, and just, like, we're one of the largest refining counties that has oil refineries in the state. How are we going to do that, right? Like, the workers, it's provided a living wage for them. How do we continue to do that and not be reliant on fossil fuels? I think that's a challenge for all of us, but I think the answers are there. I was able recently to participate in a meeting that we had with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And that meeting, I left there so hopeful. I know one of the questions you might ask me is kind of, how do I feel about things? And that meeting left me so hopeful, being up at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab and meeting all these researchers who are thinking about how we can make things better. And here's an enzyme that if you mix it in, will make the plastic just sort of degrade when you're ready to have it degrade. It's incredible, right? Like, creative people thinking about things. But we really have to make sure that those people have the resources they need to ramp it up and go, because the clock is ticking.
Yes, it is. And we are all aware of that. I'm wondering, there's all kinds of challenges to make sure that we're all doing as much as we can. Is that something you bump into at all?
Yeah, I mean, even within our county, when we're talking about these grant opportunities, one of the things that we've been trying to do is make sure that we're not competing with each other for resources, right? Like, I want to make sure that there's room for everyone at the table, and we need all the good minds coming together to make it happen, right? Like, getting territorial. This is not the time to be territorial. This is the time to think really broadly, right?
Yeah, and that might be a challenge for a lot of people.
It is. In fact, I think what when I was on the school board, but I think it's relevant in this context too. I came up with an adage that I refer to all the time, which is that many people want things to be different and better, and yet they do not want anything to change, right? And so when you think about, particularly about housing, right, like housing density, because this is definitely an issue that many communities face in California. We just keep building, and then people have these really long commutes, and then that contributes to climate change. So how do we, for example, we have a lot of housing in the eastern part of Contra Costa County. How do we bring the jobs there so people don't have to drive, right? And how do we work with regional planners who think that everybody wants to take BART to San Francisco? Maybe they don't. Maybe they just do that because they have to, because that's where the jobs are. So let's move the jobs to where the people are.
Jody London, you are amazing. I am so wanting you to update me every other week on what's going on so that I can be in touch.
You're welcome to it anytime, Kevin. I'm happy to talk more. It's really fun.
All right. Well, I am going to say thank you for now. We'll talk again soon. And in the meantime, keep up the good work.
You too. Thanks so much.